3, 2, 1, go.
Good afternoon, Sector San Francisco passenger vessel industry partners. Thank you for joining us for our Passenger Vessel Industry Day. I know that it's not like our traditional ones that we've held in the past, but I appreciate you joining us virtually so that we can continue with this annual engagement. And really how I want to kick off is just to thank you for your commitment and flexibility that you have demonstrated during this pandemic response so that we can continue in our shared goals of safety, security, and stewardship. Usually when I kick off industry days, I'll start off with some statistics. In 2019, Sector San Francisco's Domestic Vessel Inspections Branch conducted 486 small passenger vessel inspections. And then since the pandemic response, Sector San Francisco spearheaded the Virtual Inspections Initiative, which actually has been a best practice shared across the Coast Guard among other marine inspection shops. And of the 45 annual inspections conducted between March and May, 14 of them were completed virtually. Another highlight is the successful certification of the brigantine sailing vessel, the Matthew Turner, which was over a 7-year project of costs of $6.8 million of the new construction of a traditional wood sailing vessel. And with its COI in place, the vessel will serve an estimated 10,000 middle-aged youth per year and engage them in marine environmental on-the-water education. Additionally, Sector San Francisco inspections oversaw the initial construction of the water-go-round, and upon its completion will be the world's first commercial hydrogen fuel cell ferry. And lastly, another highlight is ferry operators and Sector San Francisco staff members are actively planning the 2020 Maritime Recovery Operations exercise in conjunction with a streamlined modification of the San Francisco Vessel Mutual Assistance Plan. And for those involved in that effort, thank you very much because you understand the very real threat of an earthquake response or mass rescue operation in our maritime environment, and we'll be leaning on our partners here that are joining for this industry day with regards to coordinating efforts for a maritime response. And lastly, you know that the summer brings transfer season, and I'm very sad to see this group moving on to their next tour of duty. Please join me in wishing farewell and safe travels to Lieutenant Virginia Buys, Lieutenant J.G. Catherine Cavender, Chief Warrant Officer Adam Servatius, and Chief Warrant Officer Jason Yates. For those that have worked with them, you understand their professionalism and the technical expertise that they bring, and we're sad to see them go, but know that their new units are lucky to have them. And with that, we'll continue with our virtual industry day. Again, thank you for your time, and I think that you'll find that the agenda is very robust and a worthwhile use of your time. So thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to Sector San Francisco Prevention Department Domestic Inspections. We'd like to talk for a little bit today about scheduling. Scheduling in the past has been somewhat sporadic, but I'd like to bring you through the guidelines of what is required for Sector San Francisco and the scheduling unit here at the Prevention Department. Inspection requests are required by CFR, Code of Federal Regulation, to be at least 30 days in advance. There are times where that date has been pushed out to 45 days. That's when we get so busy that it's one of the things that we have to schedule enough inspectors. All scheduling requests need to be sent to sectorsf.domestic.insp@uscg.mil and may include the form CG-3752 as necessary. The form will be covered at the end of this presentation. Requests must include vessel name and official number, requested date and time of inspection, location of the vessel for the inspection, ensure the requester's contact information, daytime phone number, valid email address for verification is included in that information. Inspection are scheduled on a first come, first served basis. Our marine inspectors do not perform inspections on weekends or holidays, and due to the required training and administrative duties, there may be several days during the work week that will not be available for inspections. As of right now, inspections are not scheduled for Fridays because of administrative duties. While inspection requests are required a minimum of 30 days in advance, domestic inspection would rather you schedule months in advance, if possible, to get confirmed on the inspection calendar. As of today, we have vessels scheduled into next year already. There may be times when, due to high demands for inspections and inspector availability, requested dates may not be available. The bottom line of that is if we do not have the inspectors, we cannot perform the inspections. Any request for rescheduling of any type of inspections, i.e. annuals, COIs, or dry docks, will be handled on the first come, first basis as well. Any changes to scheduled inspections must be approved by domestic inspections personnel and availability of scheduling openings.
Hi, this is Dave Ziegler, one of the inspectors at Coast Guard Sector San Francisco. I'm here with Mike Mitchell, our scheduler, lead scheduler, and Mike or one of the duty standers will schedule your boat. After we get the boat, it comes to an inspector, so someone like me will review your COI, and what you need to know about that are the key dates on the COI, which has a renewal date based on what's date it's issued for 5 years, and then every year it needs an annual inspection. And then at a different interval, you have dry dock dates. So to properly understand that, when we say drop dead date on your COI, it's the date in the top right corner, issue date and expiration date. And then every year, we need to come by, you have a plus or minus 90 days window to have your annual inspection completed on your small passenger vessel. And that will throw you. So again, if you've hit the 5-year date, your COI is expired, you can't go past that last date. So take that into account when you're asking for an inspection a month before it's due, especially it seems to be in the spring is one of our busier seasons. The other important date to know is your hull dry dock date. It's also printed on your COI, so however many pages you have, you'll flip through and you'll have a section that has a dry dock date, and it will be listed in the interval of 2 years for most of your boats, and the last exam and the prior to last exam. You also need to have your dry dock date completed before that expiration date. And again, the biggest thing that we see here often is, at the last minute, if you're critical on having a shipyard in exactly 1 month and you call here and it's busy, we're not going to be able to accommodate the request the same as if you call and we're not busy, which doesn't seem to happen here too often. So for just a quick review, this is your COI issue or renewal date, good for 5 years for most types of vessels out there. Then the annual inspection is due on the anniversary of the issue date every year plus or minus 90 days. So we'll come by at the first annual inspection, might be due 31 July 2020, So I can go 3 months before or after that date and be in my periodicity. Then the inspector comes, signs off down here in the bottom corner. But at the 5th year, that's the expiration date. I do not get a plus or minus 90 days. You can go early, but you can't go past that date. Other important date on the COI to know is your dry dock date. So when you go through all these routes and conditions, you'll find a section that talks about dry dock and internal structure exams. And it will list the due date. This is also a drop dead date, meaning you need to have that inspection done by or before that date. So in summary, reach out early. And if you do have questions or you do notice your dates like coming up soon, or when you're talking to us, something isn't right, you can call scheduling, but we will connect you to our branch chief if you have some sort of issue with these dates. Because you would need to talk to the leadership responsible for these to do any sort of change or exception or operating past these dates is per code of federal regulation. These must be maintained, or you could be in jeopardy of fines or losing the COI. So again, wish you the best, and keep in touch. Schedule early and often.
Morning, my name is Ensign Marty Zurich from Coast Guard Sector San Francisco, and today I'll be giving a brief presentation on plan review, and yeah, let's get into it. So when is this, one of the biggest questions with plan review is when is it required to be submitted to the Coast Guard for approval? So anytime that modifications are made to your vessel that affect any safety portion of the vessel, which includes machinery, electrical, life-saving, firefighting, structural integrity, anything like that, they're required to have any plans and repair proposals submitted to the Coast Guard for review. Additionally, any repair or replacement done that is not in kind, like a one-for-one swap, if you're changing brands or anything like that, that needs to be routed through us as well for approval. So the proposals must be submitted to us, and they must be approved on our end before work can be done on your end. Any repairs done on your end that are unapproved are done at your own expense if they need to be replaced. The procedures for plan review submissions are outlined in 46 CFR 176-700 for T-boats and 115-700 for K-boats. So the plan review is submitted to local OCMI and unit for initial approval, and then it'll be routed from there where it needs to go. So the email for that to submit plans is sectorsf.domestic.insp@uscg.mil. And they can also be submitted to the Marine Safety Center via email, which is msc@uscg.mil. So each submission that you send to us should include a list of what you're submitting and any applicable drawings as well. There's on the Marine Safety Center's website, there's a Marine Technical Notice 01-03, which provides guidance on what all needs to be submitted, drawings, blueprints, things like that. So how long will the plan review process take? So typically the process is done efficiently and quickly, but it kind of depends on what you're giving us. So typically the Marine Safety Center will reply to you within 30 days of your submission being approved, but that's given the fact that it's approved, and if it's returned for revision, then the deadline just keeps getting pushed back. So if it's submitted right the first time, in theory it should only take a month to get approved. So it's obviously in your best interest to get it right the first time. And the last big question that everyone usually has regarding plan review and vessel modifications is a new stability change, or is a new stability test required? So a stability test may be required if the aggregate weight change of the vessel exceeds 2% and if any major stability requirements of the vessel are changed, like if you're adding a superstructure to the deck or anything like that. And there's really no like black and white of whether a stability test is required or not. So a lot of times it will be at the OCMI's discretion. And lastly, we here at Sector San Francisco are here to help you. We support facilitating commerce and novel designs and ingenuity in the fleet, and we're here to help you succeed. So any questions that you have for us, we're here to help you. Reach out to us if you need anything. And so when you email us with your proposed repairs or modifications, There will be one or two local unit members who will be assigned specifically to your repair approval process, and we will be sort of helping you through it, answering any questions that you might need, and helping it go smoothly for you. So when you email us, please be sure to include the vessel name, official number, what the proposed changes are for the vessel, and any contact information that you might have. There was also a recent article published in March 2020 in the Small Passenger Vessel News article, which has all the email lists and stuff like that as well. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, I am Ensign Sarah Cannell, and I am a newly reported MI here at Sector San Francisco. Today I'm going to be going over fire drills, man overboard drills, and security drills. So to start off, fire drills, we have a couple of things that when we're MIs we like to look at. Announcement to passengers, so this is kind of a general, when a fire is reported, what is the captain doing, what is the crew doing to alert the safety of the passengers and to make sure that they won't be harmed. So embarkation of stations, especially if there's overnight passengers. Identify hazardous areas, so whether it be in the fire room or in the pilot house, allowing people to know where the fire is happening so that they can contain themselves away from it. And safe muster locations if necessary. The duties of the crew is pretty much communication and containment. So containment of the fire, containment of the passengers, and communication with the captain, whether that be through radio or just verbally. That's one of the biggest things that we would like to see between up at the pilot house and down on the decks. Knowledge of equipment, we like to see that the crew knows the location of fire equipment, the use of them, and any alarms, whether they're automated or need to be pulled manually. We like to see all of those things in the back pocket of any crew members that need to keep the vessel safe, as well as the passengers. Proper documentation. So this is one of the bigger deficiencies that we see in terms of drills. So documentation is important. You are required to have it via the CFR. So deficiencies will be issued if it's not properly logged, and that can be either a self-made chart, and you can document all of your drills all in once, or you can have them separated out. It's really up to the operator as to how they want to organize it, but we do need to see it on board for every annual and COI inspection. The log should include the date of the drill and just a general description. Most fire drills we see are verbal, so whether that's just gathering your crew and saying, hey, what would happen in case of a fire in this area, that area, with these kinds of passengers on this route. So we just want to see that documented. Man overboard drills. We do them in order to train the crew, the captain, and again, have a knowledge of the equipment that's on board each vessel. Execution that we're looking for is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but every step is extremely important. So communication, again, for the crew to point at the person in the water, announce that there's someone overboard, what side of the vessel, to not only alert the passengers of the situation, but most importantly the captain. Equipment setup, so whatever kind of ladder you have or hoisting equipment, we do like to see that the crew can operate it with the amount of personnel that the vessel has on their COI for manning. So if you only have 2 crew members on board, we would like to see that they know exactly where that equipment is and that they can handle it with the manpower that is available. And the retrieval of person, obviously, and assessment of injuries. So once that person is retrieved out from the water, whether that's getting them a blanket to warm them because the waters here are cold, or a first aid kit. It's nice to have someone CPR certified, but not required. So we, will normally ask the operator some questions as to if this would happen, if they're unconscious, who are you calling, where are you dropping them off, what kind of extra equipment do you have on board. Some key points: treat drills as though they're realistic. I know it can kind of feel silly sometimes to treat, a buoy or our Oscar as a real person, but we do like to see that you have that initiative, you have that energy, and whatever small adrenaline rush that you can get, because that does replicate a real life situation. No pre-staging equipment. We don't like to come on board and see, all of the equipment already out on board. We would like to have it stowed away to see what kind of time it takes crew to retrieve the equipment from its normal storage area and get it out to the side of the boat to retrieve someone. And Coast Guard Sector San Francisco can always lend our SpongeBob or our Oscar dummy out to operators if you would like to practice or just get more of a feel for how heavy you will have to retrieve a dummy out of the water during a COI. So just let us know and we'll be happy to lend you our Oscar. Again, why document drills? So CFR requires it, right? So we don't want to give deficiencies. Operators don't want to receive them, so making sure we're on that. It's helpful for investigation purposes in the future, and that's something just, maybe a helpful hint for operators that if something does happen, you can, go ahead and show an investigating officer or the Coast Guard or any entity that your crew has practiced this. And also you can identify any further progress that you need or anything you need to rectify. If you want to see something different in your crew, you can track that progress with your crew, which we've seen can be super helpful. Documentation, so man overboard drills need to be documented every 3 months. The log should include the names of the crew involved, the date of the drill, type of drill, so overboard, and a general description once again. Security drills. So we do security drills again to train the crew and the captain, training for the vessel security officer, as well as knowing what kind of high security equipment is on board the vessel. And there are unique boats or unique threats on every boat. Whether it's one big fleet, every boat may have something different, a new type of security equipment on board, so it's important that the crews know what vessels in their fleet require what kind of security. Proper execution, a couple of examples of drills that we've seen in the past. If a passenger entry, so someone comes on board and they need to be restricted because they possess some sort of firearm or seem extremely suspicious. Unsupervised luggage that may be suspicious, armed passengers, things of that nature. Crew response, we like to see an implementation of vessel security plan, ensuring the safety of passengers and vessels, and a notification of necessary law enforcement. So again, just going through those motions of if the situation happened, what would that look like from the security officer, from the crew, from the captain. Documentation, once again, every 3 months. Log should include the date and a general description of the drill as well. So that's all we have for security drills, man overboard and fire drills. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our office via our email or our dispatch phone, which is 510-207-1495. I'm Ensign Cannell, and thank you all for listening.
Hello everyone, my name is Chief 1 Officer Frank Spadowski. I'm an investigating officer at Sector San Francisco. I'm here to talk briefly about some of the things that the investigating office is dealing with when it comes to small passenger vessels and uninspected passenger vessels, as well as bareboat chartering, illegal charters, DAPI program, and marijuana use on board small passenger vessels in the federal waterways. So some of the stuff I'm going to touch up on is illegal charters and how they're identified, what can be done about them from your perspective as well as ours, and what the Coast Guard is currently doing about them, and why are we concerned about them. So one of the big things regarding illegal charters we get asked out about a lot is how to identify them. How does someone know if they see one? One of the first things to identify is between whether it's a 6-pack uninspected passenger vessel versus a small passenger vessel was it carrying a certificate of inspection from the Coast Guard, is inspected annually by the Coast Guard and things like that. If it's an uninspected passenger vessel carrying more than 6 passengers, it is considered an illegal charter. They're considered 6-packs, so they should have 6 passengers as well as a manned crew, whether it be a captain and a deckhand. If it is a bareboat charter, I'll get into that in a minute. There are some other parameters involved. If it's a carrying more than 6 passengers without a COI, so if that 6-pack passenger vessel is carrying more than 6 passengers, it's considered, it should have an inspected passenger vessel certification on it. So if you see more than 6 passengers, there should also be a COI posted on the bulkheads as well. if it operates without a bareboat agreement. So there are bareboat chartering, and what that does, if you equate them a lot with a renting a car at the local airport. What people will do is they'll do a bareboat agreement, which is they're bareboating, they're renting out that vehicle, that boat for that weekend with the family, or they're taking some friends out for a bareboat charter. Now there are plenty of stipulations to that. There's a contract involved, just like there is with a rental car, and there are stipulations within that contract that can make it a legal bareboat agreement, and there are stipulations with how it's operated that could make it an illegal bareboat operation. So I'll go quickly into those, and obviously if there are questions that come up from this, you can reach us from many means, whether via phone calls or emails. So there are a lot of different regulations involved, obviously between the CFRs, the US Code, and things like that. Be more than happy to go into depth with any of them, with anybody who is concerned or sees things that they're not sure about, or they hear a lot of word of mouth policy from their neighbors in the next dock over. Just feel free to ask us. And we'd much rather squelch any kind of rumors. We'd much rather just be a conduit that you can come to get some clarification. There's a lot of misconceptions and a lot of word of mouth policy that we'd like to be able to squelch if we can. So one of the exceptions that you might see is whether it's illegal charter or not is if there are any passengers for hire. You hear that term a lot. There are stipulations on how to identify that. If there's no passengers for hire, so example would just be a buddy taking his friends out for a fishing trip, and then there's no passengers for hire, there's no money changing hands, there's no consideration given, then it's not considered a charter agreement. So why are we concerned about it? What's the Coast Guard doing about it? The Coast Guard is currently, we've done multiple operations. We've done over 50 boardings for illegal charters in the San Francisco Bay Area in the last year. We've done multiple different operations in Lake Tahoe. We've done over 6 violation fines for operators that we've caught in Lake Tahoe, among many other different things. So when we get word from the charter operations or other perfectly legal operations that they see something that might be sounding fishy, or they might be seeing something that doesn't seem right, they contact us and we do follow up on it, every single one of them. So how can you help us? Well, one of the biggest things is just to educate yourselves, educate your neighbors, educate your other partners, and when you're not sure or when you're hearing a lot of other things, just ask us. One of the biggest things we can do is just give you our accessibility so that you can be able to contact us, so that we can be able to answer any questions. Be more than happy to come out and answer any questions you have. All right. So common misconceptions with bareboat chartering is whether they have to buy a certain insurance for passenger vessels and things of that nature. That is not a federal requirement, such as just when you're renting a vehicle, they don't make you buy that insurance, they offer it up to you, but it's not necessarily a requirement to rent a car. It's not a federal requirement that they buy small passenger vessel insurance if they're renting out for a bareboat agreement. However, there are plenty of stipulations as far as ownership. The owner of the vessel cannot be part of the crew. The crew has to be selected by whoever the charterer is for that bareboat. It can't be a crew that comes with this boat as part of the agreement. And the owner of the vessel cannot be any part of it as well. The owner cannot be on board during the bareboating agreement as part of the stipulations. There are a lot of misconceptions. There are a lot of different nuances to the rules, and so we don't expect anybody to be the experts on them, so just please feel free to talk to us when you see something and we can clarify. So the DAPI program, the drug and alcohol program, that are requirements on passenger vessels and carrying passengers for hire, there are a lot of stipulations. That the biggest takeaway I can say with this is, with the DAPI programs, it is a requirement for anybody taking passengers for hire, whether it be a 6-pack operator, whether it be an inspected passenger vessel. They are a requirement for anybody who is considered a safety-sensitive role, which would be a master, say a 6-pack, a master and the deckhand. They'd all be required to be enrolled in a DAPI program, randomly tested for chemicals. The biggest thing I can say is just reach out to us if you have issues or have questions, or if you're not sure about something. Be more than happy to come out and help get you in compliance, or help making sure that we're shoring up any problems. We're not looking to sit there and hammer somebody for not having a DAPI program or a proper one in place. We want to help get everybody in compliance. We'd much rather help out that way than to have a lot of operators that think they're right, but they're not sure, and it doesn't hurt to just ask. You know, we're not going to sit there and say, gotcha, we want to come out and help out. So, we've gotten a lot of questions about marijuana use on board small passenger vessels. When it comes to the investigation aspect of it, is who's liable if the Coast Guard should come on board and do a boarding and they find there's marijuana on a passenger, even though the captain told the passengers it's not allowed on board, don't bring it, and if the Coast Guard comes and does a boarding and they find it, what happens to me as the master on board, or what happens to me as my licensed mate? Currently, the status is no matter what the state or local regulations are, it is illegal to still use and own and possess marijuana on federal waterways. It's still against the federal law. So what's going to happen is, obviously warn your passengers, tell them, that you can use it all you want. We're not saying that you're not medically certified to have it or anything, but once you get on board the boat, it is not allowed on a federal waterway. So make sure they have all the warning possible, and if they still bring it on board and they don't pay attention, or they don't adhere to your regulation, then if the Coast Guard should do a boarding, we find it on board, the Coast Guard will seize all the marijuana from the passenger, will more than likely cite the passenger, and there will not be action taken on the licensed master or the mate, unless the investigation dictates that they were complicit in it or anything like that. There's no action taken on the master or anything like that. We're not looking to hammer the licensed mariners, for doing everything right, and the passengers not paying attention. If you have any questions, if there have any issues, if there are lots of different members and teammates that are talking about different things, and there's not a lot of clear direction, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help. There are a lot of different nuances to a lot of these laws, and unless you're involved in it every single day, then it can get really confusing. So please don't hesitate to help. Let us help you out.
Hey, good morning, small passenger vessel industry. My name is Lloyd Diaz, and today I'm going to give you a presentation on the top 10 deficiencies and lessons learned that we've seen over the course of the year. So this is just a general overview, but I'm just going to hop into it and make it pretty quick. So number one thing we see is disparities with the drug and alcohol program. So every 5 years when you're doing your COI inspection, you're going to do a drug and alcohol program audit, right? And that audit is the inspector is going to have a drug and alcohol program audit form, and they're going to go line by line through every section of that form and really dive into your drug and alcohol policy. When we're just doing the annual exams, right, annual and topside inspections, the inspector's just going to basically spot check your drug and alcohol program. Some questions they might ask is, do you have a written drug and alcohol policy? Are you involved in a consortium? Do you have an updated crew list? If you are in a consortium, right, you need to identify a drug testing facility that's open 24 hours. So in case you have sort of an after-hours marine casualty, you can refer that captain and crew member to go get tested. If you're on an oceans or coastwise route and you're more than 2 hours away from the dock, then you need to have alcohol test strips on board to meet the marine casualty or SMI reporting requirements. We're going to send these PowerPoints out, but I've included in the PowerPoint the Coast Guard link to everything related to the drug and alcohol policy. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, but also you can go to this DAPI program website, and they have everything you could ever want to know about drug and alcohol program. Alright, second thing a lot of operators miss is the life-saving maintenance log. So you're required to have a maintenance log for all your primary survival craft. So in the regulations, primary survival craft is defined as, a buoyant apparatus, a life float, an IBA. So you don't necessarily be needing to inspect all of your PFDs and logging that, which we do recommend, but you need to capture that primary survival craft. So segueing into sort of life-saving maintenance log is if you have an EPIRB on board, right, you operate more than 3 nautical miles from shore, you need to have an EPIRB test log that documents that you're conducting monthly EPIRB tests. Friendly reminder is that the EPIRB sort of test function, you want to follow the manufacturer's instructions when you do that test. Another thing we continually see is trouble recovering Oscar during the man overboard drill, right? So when we come on board and we bring Oscar, we're going to usually bring them for the 5-year COI inspection. Oscar is basically representing or simulating an unconscious person in the water. The inspector is going to judge you or evaluate you based on your posted emergency procedures. So make sure you're following those and make sure you have a safe policy in place to getting Oscar on board. So another thing we continually see is the regulations talk about vital systems, and vital systems have some flexible hose and piping requirements that other systems do not have. So vital systems include your fuel system, your fire main, any fixed fire extinguishing system, your bilge system, steering system, if you have a generator system, and then your main propulsion system. So vital systems, it matters because you have to have, if you have flexible hose on your vital system, it has to be SAE J1942 hose, right? And then you have to have the accompanying J1475 fittings. There are some exceptions to that rule, but a lot of people have issues with this, and we find a lot of problems with this. So if you have any questions or the regulations are confusing to you, or you're doing any modifications or repowers, feel free to reach out to our office and we can provide some clarification. So another one we continuously see as well is bulkhead penetration. So there is a difference between watertight bulkhead penetrations and vapor-tight bulkhead penetrations. So watertight bulkhead penetrations, if you have a stability letter and it says that the following watertight bulkheads need to be maintained for the stability of your vessel, then you need to have watertight bulkhead penetrations. Those watertight bulkhead penetrations need to be able to sort of withstand a head pressure of water. How is that different from vapor tight? So if you have a fixed fire extinguishing system in your engine room, then those penetrations need to be vapor tight. Vapor tight means that when that fire extinguishing system goes off, that medium stays inside the engine room along with the smoke and the heat and the flames, and it allows the fire extinguishing medium to put out the fire. Another thing we see is dead-end wires. So if you have a system that is no longer in service, it's fine that you remove that system, but we want to make sure that you also remove the wires, not only from the system, but from the power supply. Along the lines of electrical is wire nuts and splices. So the twist-on type wire nuts, we see this often, it's not allowed. So the twist-on wire tips that you see in like residential or home applications is not allowed on subchapter T or K small passenger vessels. And then when it comes along to schedule your dry dock, you want to make sure that your vessel is ready for inspection. So what that means is that it's up on blocks. The blocks are secured with chains so that the blocks aren't going to move, and that the hull has been cleaned with algae and everything's been made ready for inspection. So if you have sort of sea strainer covers, we need those to be removed so we can see your through hole penetrations and valves. We need like propellers and struts and shafts to be clean as well, so we can actually see the bare metal and make sure that there's no cracking. Also, if you're going to do any bottom paint or any type of sanding or whatnot, so we would like to come out before the bottom paint is applied, because once the bottom paint is applied, we can't really tell what's going on with the underbody of the vessel. Same goes for sanding. If you're going to sand the vessel, right, we'd like to come out see the vessel, make sure that it's in good condition, and then we'd like to come out once it's sanded bare as well, so we can get a better better evaluation of the fiberglass or whatever the whole material is. So permission for repairs and alterations. So if you're doing a repair or alteration and you're not sure if you should contact the Coast Guard, the answer is you should contact the Coast Guard. So you can give your friendly marine inspector a call. You can give the dispatch scheduler a call and just say, hey, I'm doing this alteration. I wanted to give you guys a heads up. It's always better to be on the safe side, but ultimately. Since you guys are a Coast Guard inspected vessel, repairs and alterations need to be approved by the Coast Guard. And we're more than willing to walk you through that process. It's not intimidating at all. A lot of times it just takes from you guys either email or written correspondence requesting and informing us of the alteration, and then we'll work with you on the process, and we'll send an approval. So you guys have that on board, and then we have that in our system. So one of the last things I want to touch on is the voluntary safety management system. If you guys we touched on this in the Sector San Francisco small passenger vessel newsletter that we sent out. So if you guys can go ahead and read through that, if you have any questions or concerns or need some help in developing a shipboard safety management system, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll give you all the information you guys need and sort of walk you through the process. So last but not least, don't forget to self-report if there's any deficiencies or issues you know of, either before the inspector gets out to your vessel or right when the inspector gets there. Brief them on sort of what, what's wrong with the boat, even if it's outstanding or whatnot, and then we'll mark it as a self-reported deficiency, and that doesn't show up in the sort of P6 passenger safety information exchange. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to the presentation. Stay safe out there and stay healthy.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Commander Frank Strom from the Inspections Division at Sector San Francisco. I'd like to thank everybody for watching our industry presentations, and I wish everybody the best in 2020 and a great SPV season.